So good afternoon to you all, and good morning to our brothers and sisters in California and all over the world. We are starting our second global conference on Fratelli Tutti, which was inspired by the meeting between His Holiness Pope Francis and the Grand Imam El-Tayeb of al-Azhar University in Abu Dhabi in 2019 on human fraternity, bringing brothers and sisters of all religions together and working together. Thank you very much for having accepted to be part of this conference, and would like to appreciate all those who are speaking at this global opening of the conference, which will run up to Saturday. So you are most welcome. Let us begin with the word of prayer. Almighty God, merciful and loving Father, from whom we have our origin, we thank you for this opportunity of coming together as believers of all religions, as we try to walk together as brothers and sisters concerned with the issues that affect our common home today, under the inspiration of His Holiness Pope Francis and the Grand Imam El-Tayeb of al-Azhar University. As we continue with this movement of bringing all your children together, bless our speakers today, bless our efforts, so that we may continue to work together as we address issues that affect our common home today. Send upon us your spirit of wisdom, that you may guide us, so that whatever we do may be in accordance with your will. We make our prayer through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
So dear brothers and sisters, welcome to this second global conference on Fratelli Tutti, as we celebrate also the Interfaith World Harmony Week. Our event is endorsed by the Parliament of World Religions in preparation to the event of the Parliament of World Religions, which will be held in Chicago in August this year. The conference is organized by the Institute of Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies, IRDIS, of Tangaza University College in Kenya, the Global Ministries University in California, Harmony Institute and Uma University in Kenya, in collaboration with the Institut Catholique de Marseille in France, the Pontifical Institute of Arabic and Islamic Studies in Rome, the Islamic State University in Yogyakarta in Indonesia, and the Tevere Institute in Rome. The conference is concurrently run by the Americas Hub, based in California, and the Africa Hub, based in Nairobi, Kenya. You can follow the 3-day event on YouTube. We now invite you to join the brothers and sisters who are committed to peace, justice, and ecological preservation from all religious and spiritual traditions around the world, as we continue the legacy of Pope Francis and Sheikh Mohamed Ahmed El-Tayeb, the Grand Imam of al-Azhar University, in this biennial conference. So now I would like to invite Reverend Sister Professor Jacinta Adhiambo, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academics and student life at Tangaza University College to address and give her remarks today. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Father Innocent. And I want to begin by greeting all the participants, professors, doctors, religious leaders, those who are following this through the Zoom and YouTube. I greet you good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm glad to make these remarks. And I want to begin by saying that these remarks, I want to look at it as together we walk far. So the theme of the second Global Interfaith 3-day conference, Walking Together in the Light of Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, is quite relevant to today's global citizens. The conference explores how human beings can take care of our common home, Earth, in collaboration with the others despite their different responsibilities in the society. One of the chapters of Laudato Si is dedicated to relation to nature, to God, and fellow human beings. This calls for deep reflection on how the world is taking care of our common home in connection to the Creator and neighbor. Deep thinking on such a relationship helps us to collaborate because we have one origin. The theme of this conference also resonates well with an African proverb which says, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk together. This is why Global Ministries, University, California, Tangaza University College, specifically Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies, IRDIS in Kenya, the Harmony Foundation, Umma University, Kenya, and other interfaith educational partners in Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas have decided to have the conversation on the options and challenges of working towards Pope Francis' vision in the Laudato Si and the Fratelli Tutti. Environmental issues, according to the encyclical, are posing a lot of challenges to social, economic, and mental well-being of the human person who God created in his own image. The destruction of the ecosystem due to human activities have brought profit to those who exploit the natural resources for their selfish gain without thinking of the effects of such activities. In the process, some have been subjected to abject poverty, and so the idea of fraternity and social friendship that is advocated for in Fratelli Tutti still remains a marriage, a dream yet to be realized. Pope Francis believes that fraternity and social friendship is a good strategy to building a better, more just and peaceful world, and so calling for contribution from all people and institutions. We thank the already mentioned stakeholders for organizing the conference. It is said that two heads are better than one. The challenges facing the world today, such as deforestation in some parts of the world, pollution, climate change, human trafficking, migration issues, poverty, war, to mention but a few, can only be tackled through combined efforts. Pope Francis asserts that no one can face life in isolation and calls us to dream as a single human family where we are brothers and sisters. This implies that there's need to convince people of different walks of life, political leaders, religious leaders, institutional leaders, and each and everyone to work towards a global village where the impact of environmental challenges and indifference can be minimized, if not eradicated. This is because human beings are the creators of most of these problems, such as poverty, disparity in sharing world's resources, global warming brought about by effects of greenhouse gas emissions, drought, famine, to mention but a few. The second Interfaith Global Conference, in my opinion, is already responding to the call by Pope Francis to break the culture of wars and to reach out to others to handling those issues that affect the human dignity in all aspects. It is a step to dealing with the I don't care culture or attitude, or mind your business culture. Why is loneliness experienced much now than ever before? It is because we have not heeded to the call for fraternity and social friendship that work towards becoming a brother and a sister's keeper. The tendency of working in silos most of the time seems to be the norm. What can we do so that our hearts open to the world? How do we respond to the migrants, refugees in our respective countries? Are we not strangers on our journey to our heavenly destiny? These questions would help us to think deep on our individual contributions towards the world that Pope Francis is presenting in the two encyclicals. In view of the above, I wish to challenge all the participants of the conference to work towards creating a society that is inclusive, regardless of religious affiliation, status, country, or institutions of origin and gender. Let us build bridges through our love for each other and not create walls by hatred or wars that only destroy us. Pope Francis has put it well that love builds bridges and we are made of love. If we love our neighbor, we love God, and this love will give us the impetus to take care of our common home and various needs as people of God. Let Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti continue to direct the way we deal with the environmental related issues and social friendship in the 21st century. May what is discussed during the conference be followed by concrete actions in solving the world's environmental and social friendship related issues. With those few remarks, I bless all of us and place each one of us in the able hand of our Mother Mary, the mother who knows what we really need at various times, so that she may tell our Lord Jesus what the world needs most and how we can put the theory into practice. Blessing upon all of us. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Sister Professor Jacinta, for your kind words at the beginning of this second global conference on Fratelli Tutti. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite Professor Gerald Grudzen, who is the president of Global Ministries University in California. Welcome, Professor Gerald.
Thank you very much, Father Innocent. Global Ministries University was founded shortly after 9/11 in 2001. The horrible events of that year prompted some of us to start Global Ministries University as a new international program to develop interfaith and interreligious dialogue programs online and in person in various parts of the world. And I was completing my doctorate at Columbia University at the time, and my daughter was also studying at New York University when 9/11 happened. So that was a galvanizing point in history when Christians and Muslims needed to start a new chapter in their relationship And so the first major conference Global Ministries did was in Bangladesh in 2008 in collaboration with the Maryknoll Fathers. And it was the largest interfaith conference done at that point in Bangladesh. Following that, in 2010, I was able to co-lead the largest American delegation to Al-Azhar University for a series of dialogue programs leading to a two-day program at Al-Azhar, which is the focus now of Pope Francis's work with the Grand Imam. So in 2012, Global Ministries University went to Kenya, and under the influence of the Father, at the time, Father Lago, who is now Bishop Lago, we started doing interfaith education programs in Kenya, mainly in the Mombasa region, although in 2015, we did a week-long large interfaith program in Nairobi at the Maryknoll Center in Nairobi. Following that work with the Harmony Institute and other Light Academy schools, we developed a program for teachers and then principals in the coastal region of Kenya over a period of about 7 years, including a major conference to help the people in Lamu County who had experienced attacks by al-Shabaab. So these programs led then eventually to our connection with Tangaza University. We had also worked with the Jesuit University, Hakima College, prior to that. But we learned of the institute that had been founded at Tangaza, and that seemed to be a natural fit for GMU. So it was after the publication of Fratelli Tutti by Pope Francis, we met with officials of Tangaza, and we met Father Innocent, and we proposed the idea of this international conference around Fratelli Tutti, beginning in 2021. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to be part of it and to chair the U.S. hub. We look forward to the rest of the conference, and we want to thank each of the participants here today and throughout the 3 days. I'd like to thank particularly my wife, who has chaired the Women's Voice for Peace program, which has gone on the past year and is also part of the program. She also has been the chair of the Laudato Si program for our Diocese of San Jose here in California. So we're very grateful to be here with you, and we look forward to a wonderful conference. So thank you, Father Innocent, for inviting us here to this opening.
Thank you very much, Professor Gerald, and your team for the global, the hub in the Americas. So thank you very much. Now it's my pleasure to invite Honorable Ela Gandhi, who is a trustee of the Gandhi Development Trust and a co-president of Religions for Peace in South Africa. Welcome, Honorable Ela Gandhi.
Thank you so much, Father Innocent. Thank you for inviting me to this important forum. And I greet all the panelists here and all the participants on YouTube. My fondest greetings to all of you. I want to say that firstly, at the various conferences or webinars that I have attended in the past few months and years, one major issue that has come up is the fact of inequality in our society. The various types of inequalities that our people suffer. Economic inequality, social inequality, cultural inequality, and so on. Inequality in terms of access to basic necessities of life. These are all the kinds of inequalities that actually, divide our communities and are at the at the core of the tensions that we experience throughout the world and in our own country. So if we look at inequality as the one key feature, to look at how do we address this issue, at all these conferences, the first point that comes up is a good basic education. Because if people are well-grounded, then you find that people would be willing to address all these issues of societal concern. And when I speak about education, knowledge is one part of the education, imparting knowledge. And knowledge certainly gives us power to make informed decisions. But today, with the way our society is, the access to social media, the actual reliance on the media and other sources of information, we find that there's a lot of distortion, a lot of misinformation that happens. And therefore, it is absolutely urgent for educators, for parents, for everyone who has some influence over a child to ensure that that knowledge that the child acquires is actually correct knowledge and good knowledge. So that's the one point. The second point is the understanding of how things work in our society, how systems work, where are the centers of power and so on. And how does power, what is power itself? Now, this is also an important part of education, which is often neglected when we look at the systems of our education. It dwells more on history of wars, history of, people who are at conflict with each other and so on. And you seldom get an emphasis on the history of people like, Pope Francis, for instance. Does he get a chance in the history books? Does he get, a position in our books to learn about what he has been saying? I know of very few people who know about Pope Francis's economy of solidarity and other things that Pope Francis has been talking about. And that's because of lack of information, lack of a way to provide that information, and lack of giving it the importance that it deserves. Those are the kind of information that our children should have access to, but we don't give them access to this kind of information. So that's my second point, that we need to look at information, what kind of information, what kind of knowledge we are imparting to the young people today. And then the other point that I want to make, which is very important, is that in our highly, economically centered world, where everything is about materialism and not about values, we tend to neglect those values, important values that our religions teach. So today, what we see is religion is about how often you visit your religious sites, how often you do your rituals, how well you perform the rituals, but not to understand the values that our scriptures tell us about, not to understand those principles on which our religions are based. And those are common to all the religions. They are not uncommon to any one religion. It's the same. Everyone talks about love, everyone talks about respect, and so on. And those values need to be imparted to our children, to the young people today. So if those values are imparted, what we would find then is a compassionate, humane person who will be the result of this kind of training. And if we have more people with compassion and with humaneness, with the understanding of society, loving each other, caring for each other, and caring for the world, then we would stop exploiting, stop exploiting the resources of the world, exploiting people, exercising power to undermine other human beings, and so on. And that will also stop the wars and the violence that occurs in the world today. Gandhiji, whose lessons I promote through all the organizations that I belong to, said that there is a sufficiency in the world to meet the needs of every human being, of everything in this world. If only we wouldn't be greedy, we can meet the needs of every human being. And we can do this through compassion, understanding, humaneness. And this is what Pope Francis has been talking about. And so when we talk about education, it's not just about the school, it's about the school, the home, the church or religious institutions as well. And so each of our religious institutions needs to provide not just a learning that talks about how you perform rituals, but which tells you about values and teaches those values that people have to cherish. And if we cherish those values, then love will abound and we will have a better society. So I think that as we discuss in this conference, that these are some of the issues that we need to talk about and see how we can develop them, how our knowledge system, our information system, our religious organizations can promote this kind of harmony, good values, love, and living together in harmony and in equity. You can't have wealth concentrated in a few individuals and the rest of society suffering in poverty. That has to change, and that can change if those who have the wealth learn humanity, learn about humaneness, and learn to share what they have. If that happens, then surely we will have a better society. So this is what I think Pope Francis calls for. That's my understanding of his teaching. And I would say that let's have a full discussion on this in this conference and take it forward and spread it throughout the world, because that's the only way that our ecosystem will be better, the only way in which our humanity will be able to lead a better life, and the only way in which we will stop all wars and violence. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ela Gandhi, for these kinds of words, emphasizing on the need of imparting knowledge and values. And our churches and our mosques and our places of worship could help in bringing this harmony and change the environment in which we live. Thank you very much for your kind words at this beginning of this conference. Now, allow me to invite His Excellency Bhai Sahib Bhai Mohinder Singh, with the chairman of the Guru Nanak Nishkam Sewak Jatha, and the co-president and trustee of Religions for Peace in the United Kingdom. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Dear sisters and brothers, allow me to begin with the Sikh greeting. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Greetings to all eminent participants. As a Sikh, my dharma religion urges me to recognize that as humans, we have a latent, infinite potential to do good. We are created in God's image, and God is the source of all goodness and all divine attributes. For Sikhs, God is both father and mother, also protector and guide. He is the divine force which enables and sustains existence, the master creator, whose presence pervades and permeates everywhere. Thus, God is in creation, and all of creation is in him. God's mystery is incomprehensible to us finite beings and will remain so. We need to learn from religion as opposed to learning about religion. From a Sikh perspective, a state of disconnection with God leaves us in a state of disconnection with our own selves, with others in the human family, and with all of creation. Such a disconnection leaves us spiritually dehydrated. In our attempts to make a better world, we must somehow lovingly see the unseen. This, to my mind, is key to mobilizing the degree of altruism, care and responsibility needed to meet the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are a blueprint for humanity. Whilst we identify top-down technical solutions to tackle humanity's shared challenges, we must also consider how to bring about a gear change in a spiritual sense. We must recognize that for deep and enduring change, the human heart and mind form our most vital, renewable, and sustainable source. In a global village, global partnerships and collaboration and working together is essential. Our gurus recognized the whole human race as one family. Thus, every Sikh congregation ends with a prayer invoking blessings for all humankind. Sarbat da Pala. Thus, whilst highly distinct as a religion, the Sikh Dharma holds a profound spirit of universality at its core. The Sikh worldview is summed up in the Sikh sacred logo known as Ik Onkar. Here, the numeric representation of one is followed by an expression of creation in its boundless diversity. It affirms for us the reality of God's existence. It also evokes a sacred oneness which permeates a harmoniously sustained universe where all is interrelated and interdependent. Each day, Sikhs recite Pavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Tat Mahat. This envisions the air as Guru, water as father, and earth as our mother. It instills feeling of deep gratitude towards Kudrat or nature, which like a parent selflessly and lovingly nurtures and sustains us. Indeed, Kudrat is to be revered as second only to God and to God's divine name. As humans, the Creator has blessed us with the most exalted position out of the 8.4 million life species across the realms of matter, vegetation, animals, and humans inhabiting this earth. Humans are thus honored as sovereigns with all of nature's resources at their disposal to lovingly care for a world divinely entrusted to them. This sentiment of loving responsibility is embedded in the word Dharma. There is an imperative for more sustained, meaningful engagement between governments, civil society, religious leaders, and the communities they represent. All these relevant stakeholders must be permanently connected and integrated into the work of the UN system on the basis of equitable and effective partnerships. This would entail reform and structural change to the UN's engagement with faith and faith leaders, perhaps best achieved through an interreligious advisory council. Collectively, this will provide an unparalleled capacity to foster a disposition of inclusivity and make available conceptual resources that have hitherto been marginalized. Science should not be viewed as a threat to religion and vice versa. The two should rather be viewed as complementary human pursuits, which can be creatively fused for our collective well-being. In an era increasingly recognized as post-secular, let us forge genuine, innovative partnerships between secular and religious establishments, networks, organizations, and institutions. Sacred texts and concepts should be truthfully translated and interpreted. This will be conducive to cultivating interreligious engagement and peace building. The long ingrained perceived supremacy of one faith over another should be discarded. Historically, this has created obstacles to genuine productive dialogue and action. Governments need to set aside funds and create budgets for interfaith collaboration and action. There is an essential need to collectively strategize and formulate relevant policies. Whilst interfaith dialogue has led to many declarations, the time has come to translate this into concrete action. A catalyst for meaningful transformation within interreligious affairs is good leadership. Good leaders must embody the qualities of good human beings. Good religious leaders must be genuine practitioners of their faith. They must remain humble, guided by the sense they are in the service of God and God's children. They should be worthy role models, combining competence and astuteness with selflessness and benevolence, with an intuition for good, quick decision-making. We should mobilize shared common religious values for the delivery of development within the planetary state of affairs. I strongly recommend that the UN adopt the Universal Declaration of Human Responsibilities proposed by the Interaction Council on 1st September 1997, 26 years ago. Everybody is aware of Universal Declaration of Rights, but we are not taking good care of our responsibilities. The best legacy we mortals can leave behind is to ensure that our actions result in immediate and furthest reaching effects to be enjoyed by the generations that will follow us. In closing, please allow me to share a brief prayer from our scriptural teachings. It draws a picture of the lamentable scenario of our suffering world. In an interreligious spirit, it implores God to set us free from the hold of vices which hinder us from flourishing, no matter what our backgrounds as children of one God. I pray the whole world is suffering, engulfed in flames of many destructive forces, such as blind lust, merciless revenge, insatiable greed, and the soul-destroying ego. We plead to you, God, through your mercy, please protect and save us. No matter which door or sanctuary or place of worship we come from, take us into your fold and refuge. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, on these kind words and your emphasis on responsibility. We must walk the talk. We must walk the talk. So thank you very much for your kind remarks today. Now, allow me to invite Father Paulin Batairwa, who's the Undersecretary at the Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue in Rome, and who's going to address, to give us the keynote address for today. Father Paulin belongs to the Xaverian congregation. So Father Paulin, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. So I am bringing also to you the greeting of His Eminence Cardinal Miguel Ángel Ayuso Bishop, with the prefect of our Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue, and also Monsignor Indunil and all the team. It is a great honor for me now to be present at this opening session of the second International Conference on Fratelli Tutti. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude also to the organizers for the effort and initiatives taken to enlarge the chain of transmission of the universal message of Pope Francis, especially in the two encyclicals at the heart of this conference, Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti. I finally thank all the participants in this event. Their presence manifests a longing for a fraternal and caring society, and the resolve to set the basis for its concretization. As I hope it has been the case with the first conference, this present one will extend the effective reception of the fervent invitation Pope Francis has been launching to address together issues that can no longer be neglected, for they undermine the present and future of our existence as a human family living on a common planet, the earth, that Pope Francis usually say our common home. Pope Francis has taken time to reflect on these pressing issues, which are of universal nature and whose solutions are to be worked out together in asserting our identities as peoples, as brothers and sisters, as heirs of the earth, a habitat on which our existence and that of our progeny depends, and which must be handled with care and responsibility. So it is a privilege to be given a slot of time and space, working together in the light of Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, to reflect together on concrete and effective ways that care and responsibility might be fostered. Working together in the light of Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, the theme of this colloquium, it carries on the journey of the two encyclicals of Pope Francis, which have received great consideration also among interreligious groups due to the inclusive nature of their contents and concerns. In fact, ecology and universal brotherhood or fraternity, the themes addressed in these encyclicals concern everybody and require the participation of all. For the religious part, they are to be seen as occasions and opportunities to enhance an inclusive interreligious collaboration, with each religious tradition digging in the recesses of its spiritual richness to promote the common good, which in this case is the care of the common house. Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti are lengthy documents, as you've seen them, dealing with profuse knowledge, well-elaborated arguments on ecology for the first, and universal fraternity for the latter. And for this reason, I think it will be very presumptuous for me not to attempt an exhaustive discussion on these two documents in half an hour, the time that I've been given. So I would like to use a figure, an image. And the image is, as I can't promise, a copious banquet made of the ingredient of these two documents. I wish to offer at least an appetizer that might have the benefits of indicating a few keys of functional interpretation and practical concretization. A quick way to access these documents and extract from them valuable indication for some concrete actions, I think that will be fostering interreligious commitment and collaboration, is to break down the theme into a set of questions. And those questions being answered in the light of the two documents. Therefore, the appetizer that I'm about to share intend to respond to three basic questions. What lights emanate from the document? That's the first question. What is being enlightened? Otherwise, what was hidden and is now being made visible as a result of the light that comes from the documents? And the last question, how does the awareness brought about that light impact or challenges, encourage our responses? And it's my hope that this conference clears the shadows around the light shining in the two documents and strengthens our resolve to work in it. So regarding the light of Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, in Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis is touching a dimension that is sine qua non to our existence as humans: ecology and the crisis it is undergoing due to climate change. So actually, the Pope is not a mere convenience of keeping with the tradition that the two encyclicals are being addressed to all. He insists saying to every person living on this planet. And he's trying to reaching out harmony with non-Catholic religions and secular thinkers, and also believers and religious leaders. These two encyclicals invite us not to discover and promote ecology with the awareness of the shared spiritual roots and motivations of being concerned with it. This is a quotation from Pope Francis. If we approach nature and the environment without this openness to awe and wonder, if we no longer speak the language of fraternity and beauty in our relationship with the world, our attitude will be that of masters, consumers, ruthless exploiters, unable to set limits of their immediate needs. By contrast, if we feel intimately united with all that exists, then sobriety and care will well up spontaneously. That's in Laudato Si, number 11. So our interconnectedness as human beings, brothers and sisters whose existence, present and future, is conditioned by or relies on the healthy condition of the planet, calls for, he says, a new dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet. That's in Laudato Si 14. And then there is also part of the light that emerges from these documents, the method. Both encyclicals apply a contextual methodology that makes the argument holistic. So basically, it starts with the description of the problem, and then it analyzes in a very critical way, and then insist on the light that religious scriptures and religious teaching can give, how they can help not to find solution. And then there are eventually concrete appeals or indication for a commitment or action. So this methodology, I think, is part of the light that we can find as we are reading these two documents. From Laudato Si, I mentioned the ecological crisis that is being really enlightened. It states that the reason of this ecological crisis is, while observing what is happening to our common home, he spotlights the crisis that is affecting the planet, also endangers not only the planet, the Earth, but also ourselves. And so pressing modern ecological challenges include pollution and climate change, create problem of access to water, the loss of biodiversity due to non-ecological development. It creates a decline on the quality of human life and eventually the breakdown of society, as well as global inequality, which Venerable Ela Gandhi was mentioning in her address. Then another point that is being enlightened, the complex moral questions related to the global warming. So the Pope, he echoes on the complex moral questions that are posed by global warming. According to scientific studies, it results from a great concentration of greenhouse gases emitted from the human activity in rich countries in the global north. And yet, the poor, who are least responsible for carbon emission, are disproportionately vulnerable to the harmful effects of global warming in the global south. So there is that kind of, on one side on this, you have causes of more destruction, but then you have the result on when you could say, the bad effect appears, it is not automatically that it hits the place where the harm has been created. So there is a pressing need for a consensus and policies aimed at reducing emission of carbon dioxide and other highly polluting gases, finding, for instance, substitute for fossil fuels and developing sources of renewable energy. Other highlighted aspects in the document are about the ecological debt that exists between countries of the global north and south, connected to commercial imbalance with effects on the environment and the disproportionate use of natural resources by certain countries over a long period of time, and the weak international responses to climate change that have been repeatedly undermined by economic interests that easily end up trumping the common good and manipulating information so that their own plans will not be affected. In Fratelli Tutti, the highlights are on the insistence of fraternity that is extended to all and becomes hence capable of healing all by its inclusion. A fraternity that is extended to all and including nature and bridging between Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti. In Fratelli Tutti 2020, Pope Francis speaks of a fraternity, a fratellanza, that is inspired by Saint Francis of Assisi, for whom fraternity was extended to all human beings, because Francis of Assisi, for him, the fratelli were not the brothers, were the abandoned, the sick, the discarded, the last, those beyond the confines of origin, of nationality, of color, of religion, but also the sun, the sea, and the wind. All those, Saint Francis of Assisi called those brothers. So the encyclical takes inspiration from that Francis, who heard the voice of God, the voice of the poor, the voice of the infirm, the voice of nature, and made them a way of life. That's Fratelli Tutti number 48. The Franciscan inspiration develops also on the culture of encounter and dialogue, exemplified in the encounter and dialogue of Francis and the Sultan. The other thing being highlighted is our interconnectedness. And this is it's a lesson coming from the COVID pandemic. So learning from the COVID pandemic, the Pope insisted, not the expression that came very common, we are on the same boat, interconnected. We have an interconnected destiny. Humanity is a family of brothers and sisters called to live together in an equality that collaborate and is respectful of differences. Things that are being enlightened, and we could say maybe they were there, but we could not see them clearly. There is the anthropocentrism as one of the human roots of the present ecological crisis. Pope is saying it is the belief that humans are radically separate from and above the non-human natural world. This anthropocentrism devalues creation and justifies or sustains unjust, non-respectful, utilitarian way of relating to creation. So creation is being valued only to the extent that is useful to humans. The Pope mentioned that. And then the same anthropocentrism exalts the technocratic paradigm, which accepts every advance in technology with a view to profit, without concern for its potentially negative impact on human beings, or only everything is being defined by finances. So finances overwhelm the real economy of human flourishing in an unhealthy mastery of creation that ignores everything, including starting from God. And then this document are making and enlightening the fact that our world, there are different layers of schism. And Fratelli Tutti speaks of a world that is undergoing a schism between the individual and the human community, a world with no sense of history, or not willing not to learn from the tragedy of its past, because we might simply think about many of the mistakes that happened during the 20th century and what is continuing. A world prey to conflict, nationalism, that has lost the sense of the social, and where the common good seems to be the least common of goods. The common good seems to be the least common of goods. And where people are alone, for the individual prevails over the communal dimension of existence, and people are reduced to consumers or spectators, and the strongest are always favored. So it's that kind of a world that, instead of living the bonds of fraternity that exist, basically it becomes a world that is, we have many separations. The Fratelli Tutti also comes with this, notion of interconnectedness of all creation. So the link between exploitation of creation and exploitation of the poor, the care for creation and the protection for human life and the dignity of all, especially the most vulnerable. He says, whatever is fragile, like the environment, is defenseless before the interests of a defined market, which becomes the only one rule. There is the emphasis, it comes many times on the notion of common good, which has to be, everybody should be committed not to this, either ecologically or in terms of as a social, something as a social responsibility. And from the ecological perspective, the notion of common good should be understood not only as our responsibility for this generation, but also for the next generation that will be coming. The emphasis in both encyclicals on the potential contribution of religious traditions for the care of creation. So religion have assets, spiritual views of nature, and ways which believers are to relate to it, remedies for healing distorted relation with the environment. And this can be looked at in fostering an ecological caring culture. For Christianity, creation is a divine gift to till and take care of, for God created everything with intrinsic goodness. Humans are uniquely created and called to exercise responsible stewardship over creation on behalf of the loving Creator. So all creation is actually a mystery, the diversity and unity of which both reflect and mediate the Creator. So moreover, according to this Christian view, environmental harm is caused by sin, understood as a broken relationship with God, with our neighbor, and with the earth itself. So the point here is that ecology is becoming, environmental issues are being spoken from a spiritual, from a theological perspective. There is a a theology reflecting on environment. Actually, as also the Pope, he comments and he condemns on this a misinterpretation that has been made of biblical passage when he says a dynamic that causes us not to mistake God's command for humans to have dominion over creation as exploitative license rather than a vocation to cultivate and care for God's good gift of creation. So an antidote to this is the reminder in Fratelli Tutti that the earth is lent to each generation to be handed on to the generation that follows. In Fratelli Tutti, number 178, there is a reiteration of the imperative to handle creation with the responsibility and the necessity to care for the planet, our common earth, common home. There is also a richness of the Catholic tradition. So basically what we've said, that is a methodology, going back to scripture, going on to the tradition, the teaching of religion, this is being applied from a Christian perspective in this document. So in the Catholic tradition, and similar discovery might be made in other religious traditions, there are scriptural and doctrinal insights, perhaps forgotten or misinterpreted, that might help define models promoting friendly and responsible relationship with ecology and with people. For instance, the responsible stewardship of creation and the traditional Catholic teaching by itself, the market cannot guarantee integral human development and social inclusion. This exposes the technocratic paradigm, which accepts every advance in technology with a view of profit without concern for its potentially negative impact on human beings. So with this paradigm, finances overwhelm the real economy of human flourishing, and then these things that has been already mentioned, that Pope has reiterated it in, he has said it in Laudato Si and reiterated it again in Fratelli Tutti. Now, walking in the light of this document, when we try not to define model that concretize the concept evoked in these two encyclicals of the Pope, we might say he has, for instance, this idea of ecology, which evolves and responds to the awareness of the interconnectedness of everything in the whole creation of which humanity is part. So he'll be insisting that to be effectively integral, a model of development that is effectively integral, it must take into consideration, it must include all the various aspects of human life, academics, economics, health, governance, culture, and every part of daily life. And we have there in Laudato Si from 139 to 155, he develops this. The light brought by Pope analysis has shown the intimate connection between ecological degradation, climate change, and the promotion of preferential options for the poor, since those with the least are most harmed by ecological degradation. So to be integral, the solution must be creative, critically assessing the models of progress and development of modern society, the harm they cause to the present and future generation. At this point, and in line with Pope Francis, who acknowledged the agreement of his analysis on climate change with scientific studies, I would like not to recall the remarks of a certain Timothy Mitchell regarding climate change. He argued and demonstrated how Western economies and their underlying democratic systems were largely built on the exploitation of coal and then the oil, and how getting out of the fossil fuels would imply redefining certain foundation of Western political and social systems. So climate change is the major challenge of the 21st century, and it cannot therefore be addressed without rethinking and reshaping the most important sectors of life, for the solution must have the ramification in politics, in economics, in justice, development, peace, migration, trade, health. All this must be profoundly transfigured by climate change. There is also not walking this light should be also not to concretize what Pope calls his call for ecological conversion, which have to be personal and communal. So personal and communal ecological conversion procure freedom from consumerism and what calls collective selfishness. It invites persons toward lifestyle animated by sound ecological virtues, such as those good habits that must be developed in person by both secular and faith communities. Now, the action prompting ecological conversion might feature how consumer movements like boycotts are proved to be successful in changing the way business people operate, forcing them to consider their environmental footprint and their pattern of production. So the prophetic gift of contemplation is something that we can learn, especially from indigenous people and also from religious people. They teach us that we cannot heal the earth unless we love and respect it. So we need an ecological conversion that can find expression in concrete actions. As a single and interdependent family, we require a common plan in order to avert the threats to our common home. What is ecological conversion? Which are the signs that we are being converted ecologically? So ecological conversions, these are the words of Pope Francis just mentioned this few days ago. And he was responding on the signs of this ecological conversion, what is happening to the world and to our own personal suffering, and thus to discover what each of us can do about it. When we are thinking this way, we are undergoing ecological conversion. It calls us not to change gears, to change bad habits in order to be able to dream, co-create, and act together to realize just and equitable futures. And then, speaking on to a Buddhist delegation from Cambodia, the 19th of January of this year, he was mentioning those words. So similarly, in his address not to the Laudato Si communities, he stressed the need to contemplate the earth and its needs and beauty in order to act in a way that respects it and the human family. The work of integral ecology is not simply caring for the earth, but having compassion on the human family, which draws life from creation. There are also no actions, concrete action promoting ecological education. So promoting ecological education might provide information everywhere in society, at school, in families, in the media, in catechesis, political institutions, and various other social groups, also Christian communities that seek not to form good habits. So working in the light of the two documents might indicate concrete approaches and actions that express the diverse need for common and yet differentiated responsibility. This idea of common and yet differentiated responsibilities is, in Catholic terms, under what they call subsidiarity. Now, the other aspect in while working in the light of this document, the methodology used in the encyclicals, it can be also used not to duplicate and multiply best practices of engagement in promoting integral ecology to form people who create space and time for sharing, conceiving projects, small but effective actions that build fraternity and a certain and peaceful and caring coexistence of the diverse species of the planet. So the method can also be used to foster a dynamic inclusion by enlarging the tent to other peoples and institutions which are still at large. So the question is to ask ourselves, who is still missing? Who is not yet engaged? Who is still doubting about this? How do we get that person? How do we get them inside? So by enlarging the tent to other people and institutions which are still at large, unaware or not interested in the concerns brought about the two encyclicals. In fact, one productive way of reading the encyclicals should culminate in reaching out to the missing, bringing them around the table so that they might also be part of the journey, whose impact becomes more visible and tangible as we walk together. For Pope again insists, no one can be saved alone. So in terms of conclusion, I think this conference is calling attention onto the inspirational messages issued in Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, two encyclicals of Pope Francis addressed not to the entire humanity and aimed at promoting models of society where brothers and sisters live in an all-inclusive fraternity, respectful of their diversities, and work together in a caring solidarity extended to the earth, our common home. Participants of this conference are part of a minority, wise and determined, that does not neglect the power or the capacity of small actions in bringing big change, especially in addressing the imposing questions raised by the current environmental crisis. That is, this is a quote, our capacity to keep the earth habitable, livable for all, especially for the most vulnerable. This, in Franciscan spirituality, is extended to all species. A participant of this conference are to use an image of Pope Francis on a journey of reconciliation that also calls for listening and contemplation of the world that God has given us as a gift to make our common home. Indeed, natural resources, the many forms of life and the earth itself, have been entrusted to us to till and keep. Also for the future generations, through the responsible and active participation of everyone. We need to change the way we think and see things, and to become more open to encountering others and accepting the gift of creation, which reflects the beauty and wisdom of its creator. I think it's providential that for a consecutive time, this conference on Fratelli Tutti is being moderated from Kenya, which is one of the most favorite tourist attractions in Africa, mostly because of its rich, diversified, and natural wildlife. And I would not like not to conclude this sharing without mentioning a few enigmatic secrets about the giraffe, one of Kenya's pearl, that many people want not to go to visit. I think that the giraffe has those things that might be interesting to people who are also interested in this conference. Giraffes, they have large and strong hearts. And I was told that actually the heart of a giraffe is really, it's heavy. Why? Because they had to pump blood to the extreme part of their body. They have legs quite tall and long neck, which provide them with the stature not to look far away. So they have such a long vision that help them anticipate danger. Moreover, usually around the giraffe, there are many small-sized herbivores that walk in the trap that the giraffe has made and follow them, because they are sure from the gesture that it can prevail, it can see and tell them about a danger. So those enigmatic things that are in the giraffe, a big heart that loves, a vision that sees very far away, and then leadership, because accepted and followed. These, I think, are three values that the giraffe incarnates, and which are also necessary for the journey and the all-inclusive dialogue on how we are shaping the future of our planet, which Pope Francis conveys in the two encyclicals. there is these words from Francis in Laudato Si: the urgent challenge to protect our common home includes a concern to bring the whole human family together to seek a sustainable and integral development. For we know that things can change. Humanity still has the ability to work together in building our common home. May this conference clear the shadows around the light shining in those two documents and strengthen the resolve to walk in it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Father Paulin, for bringing us into the heart of these two documents and linking the two documents together and trying to dissect what are the issues that we need to bring forth. And actually, our program will be tackling issues which are presented in those documents at length. So we have chosen quite able speakers from all around the world. Yeah, so that we create this awareness. Yeah, we create this awareness. So thank you very much. This was part of the global opening. And I said this is being co-chaired from Nairobi and California. California is already in the morning. So this is part of the global opening. And then they will continue the day with 3 panels. The first one is about some effective strategies for addressing climate change. Panel 2, voices of women in building human solidarity. And panel 3 on immigration at the southern border of the US. We know the issue between, Mexico and the United States, and the issue of migration. So the conference evolves while we are going now to sleep. Is now the conference goes on in America, and then when they go to sleep, and then we wake up in the morning and we continue with the conference so that we can reach a wider audience. Thank you very much for all our speakers. Thank you very much to Honorable Ela Gandhi for your presentation and remarks. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Bhai, Singh, and thank you very much, Father Paulin, and also the co-chair of this conference, Professor Gerald, and the team in the US, California, and Chicago, and also in Nairobi. So thank you very much. And then we continue the conference online as we follow the America's Hub. So thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. And may God bless you and all of us. I would like to remind that we will need those written papers, which will be published later on into a book, also in a printed form, and also online printing. So thank you very much.